folks. Welcome to SIG-Testing. As usual, if there's anybody new here who would like to introduce themselves, just give like a short, like who you are and why you've come to the SIG-Testing meeting, feel free to. Otherwise, we can go ahead and get started with the agenda.
I guess I can give a quick intro. 1 minute. Um, yeah, so hi everybody. First time here. I started doing some contributions to KubeTest like 2 months ago because we own a large suite of scalability tests using KubeTest and Cluster Loader 2, and we're migrating to KubeTest 2, and we're using like every line of code that you can imagine in KubeTest. So it's a big effort, and we needed some new things in KubeTest 2, so we decided to, do some contributions there, and we kind of naturally got more involved in the project. So just looking around as we use other things as well, like Boscos and like KubeKins images, all that stuff. So just looking around and hoping to help maybe a little bit.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. I think we got looks like two rough topics on the agenda. So, Peter, if you want to go ahead and get started for Prow, I think go for it.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I wasn't attending this meeting for maybe years now. So, hey, hello everyone. I'm Peter. I do stuff for Prow as much as possible, and like we very recently started, poked by some like discussions on Slack. We started thinking and trying to get things moving in the Prow project again. It's Prow is still like powering a lot of work in Kubernetes community. Like it's still testing stuff and merging PRs and doing things. But like for some time, it's like as a project, it hasn't really seen that much activity. Like most of the original authors have moved on. We are keeping things working, but there's not much new stuff. And it kind of shows. But there is still interest. Like we are seeing people coming to our channel and wanting to contribute thing like we for some time we were like having a little trouble giving good answers for them. We don't have a really good curated backlog of items. Most of the easy stuff is done right away. What's not done right away tends to be a little difficult for especially for newcomers, stuff like that. So we started talking about things. We did a Proud contributing call last week. That was actually like very, very full, like very, very deep discussions. We ideated out some like things we could do, like start curating our backlog and improve our documentation, and in general, like start appearing more around the SIG meetings and everything. So because we did that call last week in the time that was not as much like Pacific time friendly, like it would be very early morning on Monday. I wanted to bring this topic also to the SIG testing meeting to encourage people if you have ideas or suggestions about like what we could do in a Proud project to enable especially new contributors to like enable them to be able to contribute. I would be very happy to hear them, and we are trying to get things moving again. So that's.
Thank you, Peter. No, I completely agree with some of the things I missed last week, but some of the things mentioned in the call as far as better documentation for setting Prow up locally, for understanding how to actively develop with it. Me and Ben and Michelle have had the conversation a few times, is that Prow is kind of one of those critical systems that you want to be careful about modifying, and someone new coming in to hack on Prow does bring initial concern as to the implications of like even impacting OpenShift, right? Like with y'all's setup of Prow, how changes work within that. So us definitely defining a lot of this is awesome. I think it's great. I'm available to work on some UI stuff now that I'm doing work with Quay. A lot of my day-to-day job is UI stuff, so I'm down to help out with that, as well as I need to get back to working on test grid. And I would also agree with you, the backlog is not in a very good shape. Most of the issues that end up coming in are like this esoteric issue that you have to very much understand Kubernetes and how Prow is being used to debug it even remotely. I think I've tried quite a few times. So no, this is awesome. I think this is great. Really, the main thing I want to initially see us getting started with is documentation, us figuring out how we can start selling newcomers on the idea of hacking on Prow a lot easier, how we can set it up and configure it. Because I also know that one of the long-term asks for Prow is the security stuff. Michelle, you may know some more information on where that landed. But I do know there's that whole private fork of Kubernetes that we need to have Prow running for, and I think understanding that should be a bit intense. But yeah, no, I think you're right, Arnd. It should be okay if something breaks Prow. It's not the end of the world. I say that all the time at work because we don't work on mission critical software. So
I will. Oh, sorry.
no,
I wanted to immediately react to her now. I don't think new contributors should break Prout because I don't think like breakages should get through in the first place. I think I get where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree. But like, I think an increase in like testing and guardrails and whatnot should make it much easier for folks to contribute without having to worry about breaking Prout in the first place, which would be great. I also agree. Like, even as somebody who has like a little bit more access to folks who have worked on Prow and like has a little bit more knowledge of Prow on the sidelines, it's like there's a lot of different components and moving parts, and a lot of it is like not necessarily trivial to change without accidentally like needing to understand three other components.
I think the topic of like breaking Prow, it's all related, like to me, because like I think like merging PR that breaks something, that shouldn't be the end of the world. You should be able to catch it later, and you don't necessarily need to always deploy everything immediately after it merges, right? So it's all like we have a depth in the project of like having a proper like release pipeline. We are still using the old registry, and that like people generally consume the images built from the staging registry, and it's like some organizations, I guess, would deploy everything that gets merged almost like immediately because they consume the staging registry right away. Like having a proper release promotion, maybe like gated by some kind of testing, what made like merging something, possibly breaking something, like not so much of a big of a deal because like it would never got into the release. It would just be like broken in staging for a day or two, and then would get fixed in a follow-up or something like that. So it's like, to me, paying this debt would be related.
awesome. Does anybody else have anything on the enabling contributions? If not, we can go to your second topic, which is all kind of related, but
Yeah, it is related because like, okay, if we are reviving this process and we want to tell new contributors what to do, we kind of have like need to have an idea what is the project's direction. And like Prow, like everything in the repo is currently like fairly big, and like the landscape of like CI/CD tooling and the developer experience tooling and stuff like merge queues and merge bots, and this evolved a lot like since the like most of Prow was built, and like most of Prow was built on like immediate requirements of the Kubernetes community at that time, right? And Like now it kind of stays there and it's being adjusted here and there. And we were like, I think Matthias was the person who said it on the contributor meeting, like what should be the scope of PROW today? Like what is the purpose of the project? And we thought like the primary customer of the project is Kubernetes community, because like it's the thing that powers the development there. Like I think that's like non-negotiable from like from our perspective. I don't know if there are voices in Kubernetes community that would say we want to get rid of it and start using something else. I would say there are. I don't think it's possible or anything like that. There are also like external instances of PROW. Like there are like companies running larger or smaller instances for their own purposes, and we are actually, it seems that like many contributions we are getting, like they come from this use case. Like I'm like someone is running PROW, it doesn't serve their purpose very well, so they contribute the missing part. That's great. Scratch your own itch, right? So we have we receive value from this use case, and I think we should be. It's a little bit of secondary purpose of the project, but I don't think we should entirely shut it out. But in general, and I don't think we need, like, we are able to solve this on this meeting, but like I would like to start an ongoing conversation of what Kubernetes community needs from PROW. Like, are there pieces that maybe PROW should stop doing? Maybe there is better tooling to handle, I don't know, code ownership, development, like approval processes, merging perhaps, I don't know, running tests. Like all of this is something that PROW does something better, something like less so. Maybe reducing the scope of the project would help us like establish some kind of like intentional direction.
Yeah, I don't know if others have any thoughts on it, but I completely agree with you. I do think that us being the number one consumer of PROW, it's very important that PROW itself be maintained to what we need as far as feature sets and requirements go. But to also your point, you yourself are literally paid by Red Hat to maintain an instance of PROW internally with a team of others that lead to a lot of contributions that I think we can try to build upon, I guess, to leverage. No, I'm right there with you as far as figuring some of these things out, but I think it's very important that we understand like what's a no-go for PROW, right? If some company comes and says, hey, we want to put this in PROW, we definitely need to understand what we do and do not want in this system itself. And it's not saying much, but yeah, does anybody else have any other thoughts?
I mean, plus one to that. I'm wondering along the lines of like documentation for getting folks up to speed better. If we also have like, I know we have the existing Proud docs, and I think they do have a lot of good info in them. I also wonder if we have like just a good rundown of exactly where we think Proud like has features that are most important for the Kate's project right now. Just as a starting point for like which of the areas we want to focus more on.
Yeah, I think also I need to check up on the channel. Y'all recently were talking about some stuff within Spyglass, I think, improving something within Spyglass. I think at the end of the day, there's just a bunch of these issues floating around that we need to start aggregating to better organize the layout of what we think PROW should be going forward, like what 2026, 2027 PROW looks like, and how that impacts the community. But yeah, again, I think this is first going to start with us improving the documentation, improving the process to onboard new people, so that it's not just us working on all this stuff.
So
Actually,
my one,
oh, go ahead.
okay, my wonder is like, what would be the channel for me to like, or for proud contributors in general, like what would be the channels we could use to get this information? Like, what would people like to have? Like, what doesn't serve the purpose right now? Like, I don't know. Are people replacing proud jobs, for example, with GitHub Actions? And like, if so, why? Maybe like it has like stuff like that. Like, what would be the channels we could use?
I mean, I'd initially say, if possible, like maybe me and Michelle could figure out sending out a survey to the wider community to figure out getting some feedback. I think a perfect point of what you just said, if people are switching off to use GitHub Actions over Proud, then we need to identify why. Like, what need are we not meeting? What features do we not have available? I mean, it may just be, I mean, I've heard it plenty within Red Hat, just Proud can be slow at times, that it's quicker for them to set up GitHub Actions and use that. So I think it's important that we start identifying some of this. So maybe that we can end up sending out a survey to gather feedback. But I definitely want it to go to a wider audience than just like the SIG testing group, even because we are a bit insulated at times.
Contribex kind of springs to mind as well, I think. Because like obviously Proud is heavily involved in the contributor experience, especially in like a few different areas. It's like a thing that pops up on every PR. I think also there may be a good case for pulling any usage stats that we have. Just like yeah, again, we could probably pull some stats in terms of like the scale that Proud's running at for different areas of the project, so like the main KK branch versus like other areas. The use of the site itself is probably great. Survey, I think, combined with that would help determine whether it's like some areas are not getting used because it's just like too slow, so people have learned workarounds versus like it's just legitimately not being used, or legitimately is. The other thing I was going to point out is not to move the focus off Proud, but just to say like I think this is potentially a good opportunity to also figure out the things that like we need in general as SIG testing in terms of tooling, where it doesn't necessarily fall under Proud's scope, but it does fall under SIG testing scope to have something there. Like visualization is test grids area for like that kind of thing. We have triage for like SIG release and stuff like that. We have like the general UX consideration across like multiple of our tooling that we may want to consider either consolidating or making work better together. I know that was brought up last year as well at KubeCon, stuff like that. So like definitely we should have like some ideas for this for Prow specifically, but also just keep in mind like, hey, if we have things that aren't like in Prow's scope, that's fine. We can figure that out as SIG testing where we should like focus on it.
No, I think immediately my first thing, as soon as I said survey, is we're going to have some responses with like test grid feedback. Like, well, that's what we wanted, but like not exactly. So if you could separate that, but yes, I think that's great.
That happens constantly. There's also an aspect to which like people don't necessarily know the thing that they are interacting with as a tool. They know the thing that they are like having to do, like, hey, what's the thing that's responding on my PRs all the time and telling me that the tests are broken versus like, I see red and green squares and I think that's bad. But yeah, like we do have like that suite of things that we should be taking a look at, and that's probably good for starting to plan for next year.
I definitely think we should also call this out with maybe the next release on where opportunities to contribute. We've had numerous times in the past that Contribex has reached out to us and asked us for information on that, and we try to provide some stuff, but again, without having a lot of the structure with like the documentation and the getting started, it just kind of ends up being a dead end for contributors. Like me and Michelle are currently going through this with Test Grid. It's like we have to really get people going with Test Grid, otherwise they're just not going to stick around and contribute. So okay, this is wonderful. Do we want to move on? Is everybody good on that? Got some action items from me and Michelle. Patrick, it looks like you have the next item.
Yeah, it's just a general call out Well, first let me say hello. I usually don't attend this meeting, but I'll try to be more regular here. It's late evening my time, that's usually the problem. But I figure that discussing things with just Ben and Antonio online leaves out a lot of people who would also be interested in the things that we are discussing. So we all be free. We discussed, and we hope to attend here more often. I'll certainly try. And the line item for today is something that affects other people defining pre-submits. And I was trying to capture the thought process that we have a policy around when it is suitable to have a pre-submit that is triggered, for example, by a certain file pattern, whether that is a thing that it even should be done, and under which circumstances, because pre-submits can be pretty annoying for other contributors if they get triggered in a pull request and people don't know what to do with it. So this policy is what I came up with. It has gone through a few iterations. It's now 1 year old, and we still haven't merged it. The latest comment was from Ben in October. I also asked him at KubeCon, and perhaps he is the person that I need to convince that this is now okay to merge, but I'm not sure. Others might also have an opinion on it. There is a corresponding PR in test infra, which actually enforces some of these things. What it enforces is that pre-submits actually need to be registered in a file, and that file is under control of SIG-Testing. So we want to avoid that someone just adds a SIG, I don't know, a SIG node pre-submit because they feel like it, and SIG node approves, and it goes in, and they don't pay attention to this policy. So we will have to be in the loop to enforce this policy going forward when the test infra PR lands. But the first step is agreeing on the policy. And I don't think we need to discuss much here. It's really just heads up that this is pending, but I would like to see people look at it. And I need to be, I guess I need to get Ben on it again. But he's not here today, so that kind of cuts the chance to discuss it live a bit short.
Okay, I think that's really everything we got. If anybody else doesn't have anything.
Yeah, I just want to say, this looks like a good write-up. I didn't remember looking at this last year, but like, yeah, I would encourage folks to take a look. I think I do agree. Ben's opinion is big here, since I know he was also already talking on the PR. I did respond to. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, I think that's everything then. Me and Michelle will take a look at the survey, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.